I'm Rachel Morrison, and for 12 years I've watched my older brother Cameron build his empire on lies while treating me like the family charity case. When he spent $15,000 to prove I was a fraud, he accidentally hired the one investigator thorough enough to uncover his own crimes. This is how my brother's quest to destroy me became his own destruction. If you've ever been treated like the family punchline, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You're not going to want to miss what happened next. Cameron was always the star. High school quarterback, business degree from USC, an MBA from Northwestern that my parents still brag about to strangers. At 38, he'd cultivated an image of massive success. Expensive suits, luxury cars, a mansion in the best neighborhood, a wife who looked like she walked off a magazine cover. I was the weird little sister. The one who liked computers more than parties, who chose a state school for my bachelor's in computer science, who started working at a boring tech company doing IT stuff that no one understood or cared about. Rachel's doing her little tech thing, Mom would say dismissively at family gatherings, as if I was running a lemonade stand instead of working in enterprise software development. Cameron loved the contrast. Every family dinner became his TED Talk. I just closed a $5 million investment round, he'd announce, waiting for the applause that always came. My fund's managing over $50 million in assets now. We're looking at commercial real estate, tech startups, sustainable energy, diversified portfolio across 12 sectors. He called it Morrison Capital Partners. Glossy website, professional office space, a team of associates who looked sharp in matching blazers. He drove a Tesla Model S, wore a Rolex, took business trips to New York and Dubai. And Rachel? Dad would turn to me dutifully, his tone already apologetic for what I might say. Works fine, I'd answer. Always the same. Always vague. Still doing that computer stuff? Cameron would lean back, swirling his expensive scotch. IT support or something? Software development. Right. He'd nod like he understood, but his smirk said he didn't care. Good to have a stable job. Not everyone's cut out for entrepreneurship. His wife, Melissa, would laugh, a crystalline sound that felt like breaking glass. Rachel's so humble. I think it's sweet she's not obsessed with status. What they didn't know. I was the VP of product development at a mid-sized tech company, making $180,000 a year. Good money, but nothing compared to Cameron's claimed wealth. Except I was also the founder and CEO of MaxTech Global. I'd started MaxTech 6 years ago with my college roommate Alex Chin. We developed proprietary AI algorithms for predictive maintenance in manufacturing, software that could predict equipment failures before they happened, saving companies millions in downtime and repairs. We'd started small. One client, a mid-size automotive parts manufacturer. Then 10. We scaled carefully, reinvesting every dollar, never taking on debt we couldn't handle. Alex handled the technical architecture. I managed everything else: sales, operations, hiring, strategy. By year 3, we had 40 clients and $12 million in annual revenue. By year 5, we'd been acquired by a Fortune 500 industrial technology company for $95 million. I retained a 40% stake and became CEO of MaxTech as a wholly owned subsidiary with full operational independence. My personal payout from the acquisition: $38 million. My current salary as CEO: $320,000, plus equity that was worth another $23 million at last valuation. Total personal net worth: approximately $67 million. I'd never told my family any of this. Why? Because I wanted to see who they were when they thought I had nothing to offer them. I wanted to see if they'd love Rachel the person or only Rachel the resource. I got my answer years ago, but I kept watching, kept documenting, kept building. I lived in a nice but modest townhouse, drove a 5-year-old Honda Accord, wore jeans and blazers to family events. When Cameron bragged about his investments, I nodded politely and asked questions like I was learning from him. Meanwhile, MaxTech was expanding internationally. We'd opened offices in Germany and Japan. We'd just landed a $30 million contract with a defense contractor to secure their supply chain systems. Forbes had reached out about including me in their Next Generation of Industry Leaders feature. I'd declined. I wasn't ready. My business partner Alex knew about my family situation. Rachel, why do you keep going to these dinners? They treat you like you're invisible. Because I need to know how far they'll go, I'd said. And I think I'm about to find out. What I didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Cameron's empire was a house of cards. Morrison Capital Partners wasn't managing $50 million in assets. It was managing approximately $7 million in real investments and $43 million in fictional returns he'd promised to investors using money from new investors. Classic Ponzi scheme. For 8 years, Cameron had been recruiting investors. Friends, family friends, business acquaintances, people from his country club, with promises of 15 to 20% annual returns. Guaranteed, he'd say. My fund has never had a down quarter. That should have been the red flag. Nothing guarantees those returns except fraud. He'd started small. A few investors, legitimate investments, real returns. But then he'd gotten greedy. Bought the mansion. The cars. The lifestyle that looked like success. He needed more money to maintain the image, so he recruited more investors and used their money to pay the earlier investors their returns. The math was inevitable. Eventually he'd need more new money than he could possibly recruit. The scheme would collapse. It was only a question of when. That when arrived in March, 6 months before everything exploded. One of Cameron's investors, a retired dentist named Dr. Harold Pierce, wanted to withdraw $200,000 for his daughter's wedding. Cameron stalled. Market timing, he'd said. If we liquidate now, you'll lose potential gains. Wait until June. Dr. Pierce waited. June came. Cameron stalled again. Volatility in the tech sector. July will be better. Dr. Pierce got suspicious. He hired a financial forensic accountant to review his investment statements. The accountant found irregularities immediately. Trades that didn't match market records. Returns that didn't align with any actual investment strategy. Statements that looked professional but had subtle inconsistencies. Dr. Pierce demanded his money. Cameron promised it was coming. Weeks passed. Nothing. Dr. Pierce filed a complaint with the SEC. Cameron panicked. An SEC investigation would uncover everything. He needed a distraction. He needed to shift focus. He needed a villain. He chose me. It was October when Cameron called an emergency family meeting. Mom's house, Saturday evening, mandatory attendance. I showed up in my usual outfit. Jeans, a plain sweater, my practical Kate Spade bag that I'd bought 5 years ago. Cameron was already there in a suit that probably cost $3,000, pacing like a caged animal. Melissa sat on the couch, her expression tight. Mom and Dad looked worried. My Aunt Linda and Uncle Frank were there too. They'd invested with Cameron. Thank you all for coming, Cameron began. He looked haggard despite the expensive grooming. We have a serious family matter to discuss. Everyone looked at him expectantly. Morrison Capital has been facing some challenges. False allegations from a disgruntled investor. The SEC is asking questions because this person has made completely baseless accusations about my fund's practices. Uncle Frank leaned forward. What kind of accusations? Fraudulent statements. Misrepresented returns. It's all lies, of course, but investigations like this can damage reputations. Cameron's jaw tightened. The problem is, this investor is claiming that my lifestyle doesn't match my actual business income. That I'm somehow living beyond my means. He looked directly at me. And then I started thinking about Rachel. Every head turned toward me. Rachel, you've always been secretive about your finances. You claim to work in tech, but you live like you're barely scraping by. You drive a car that's falling apart. You dress like you shop at Target. I do shop at Target, I said calmly. Exactly. Cameron pointed at me like I'd proven his point. You're constantly poor-mouthing, playing the victim, making the rest of us look bad by comparison. And I started wondering, what if you're actually doing well and hiding it? What if you've been lying to make me look greedy by comparison? I blinked. You think I'm pretending to be less successful to make you look bad? It would make sense. Melissa chimed in. You're always so quiet about your job. So secretive. What are you hiding, Rachel? Mom frowned. Rachel, honey, are you making more money than you've told us? Why would that matter? I asked. Because, Cameron said, his voice rising, if you're secretly wealthy and have been lying about it, that proves this investor's claims about lifestyle versus income are ridiculous. If my own sister is secretly rich but lives like she's poor, it shows that lifestyle isn't an indicator of actual wealth. The logic was tortured, but I saw what he was doing. He needed to prove that someone could be wealthy while appearing modest. He needed an example to point to when the SEC asked about his mansion and cars. He needed to make me his shield. So I've made a decision, Cameron announced. I've hired a private investigator. Carson Wells from Wells Investigative Services. Cost me $15,000, but he's the best. He's going to conduct a complete background check on Rachel. Finances, employment, everything. And when he proves that she's been hiding wealth, it will discredit the entire lifestyle as evidence argument the SEC is trying to make. I sat very still. You spent $15,000 to investigate me. To protect this family, Cameron corrected. To prove that the accusations against Morrison Capital are baseless. You should be thanking me. And if this investigator doesn't find what you think he'll find? Cameron smiled. He will. You're hiding something, Rachel. You always have been. And Wells is going to expose it. Dad cleared his throat. Cameron, is this really necessary? Rachel's your sister. Dad, I'm facing an SEC investigation because someone is lying about me. If Rachel's been lying too, we need to know. Family means being honest with each other. The irony was so thick I could taste it. When does this investigator present his findings? I asked. Family dinner. December 15th. Here at Mom and Dad's. I want everyone to hear the truth. Cameron crossed his arms. Unless you want to confess now and save us all the trouble? I smiled politely. I have nothing to confess. I'll see you in December. I left without another word. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from tonight. I drove straight to MaxTech headquarters and called an emergency meeting with Alex and our head of legal, Patricia Gaines. Your brother did what? Alex stared at me in disbelief. Hired a PI to prove I'm secretly wealthy so he can use me as evidence in his SEC investigation. Patricia's expression turned sharp. Rachel, if a thorough investigator looks into your finances, he's going to find MaxTech. And if he's doing proper due diligence on your background, he might look into my family as well, I finished. Including Cameron. Do you know what this investigator will find about your brother? Patricia asked. No. But I know Cameron's lifestyle never made sense. The math doesn't work. Alex pulled up his laptop. Want me to do some digging? See what's publicly available. Please. What Alex found over the next week was damning. Morrison Capital Partners had filed documents with the SEC showing approximately $12 million in assets under management. Nowhere near the $50 million Cameron claimed. The fund's returns, when plotted against market indices, showed patterns that were statistically impossible without fraud. Multiple investors had complained on financial forums about difficulty withdrawing funds. Rachel, Patricia said carefully, I think your brother is running a Ponzi scheme. I felt cold. How certain are you? 90%. The patterns are textbook. If this investigator is good, he'll find it, Patricia said. Especially if he's doing financial background checks on your family to contextualize your finances. Any competent PI would look at family financial history as part of a comprehensive report. I called my personal attorney Marcus Webb, who'd handled the MaxTech acquisition. Marcus, I need you at a family dinner on December 15th. My brother hired a PI to investigate me. I think the PI is going to find significantly more than my brother wants him to. What will he find? And possibly evidence that Cameron is committing securities fraud. Marcus whistled. I'll be there. And Rachel? I'm bringing Sarah from our criminal defense division. Just in case. I spent the next 6 weeks preparing. I contacted Carson Wells directly, the PI Cameron had hired. Mr. Wells, this is Rachel Morrison. You were hired to investigate me. There was a pause. Ms. Morrison. This is unusual. Subjects don't typically call me. I want to cooperate fully. I'll provide access to any documents you need. I want your report to be completely accurate. Another pause. Why? Because I want the truth. Whatever you find, I want it documented correctly. Can we meet? We met at a coffee shop. Carson Wells was 50-ish ex-FBI with the kind of eyes that saw through bullshit immediately. Ms. Morrison, I've been doing this for 20 years. You're the first subject who's ever volunteered to help me investigate them. I have nothing to hide, I said simply. Find whatever you're going to find. I just want it accurate. I provided him with complete access to my finances, employment records, MaxTech documentation. Everything. If you're doing proper due diligence, you'll also look into my family's financial history, correct? His eyes narrowed. That would be standard practice, yes. Good. Be thorough. He studied me for a long moment. Ms. Morrison, what do you think I'm going to find? About me? That I'm the CEO of a successful company. About my family? I met his gaze. I think you're going to find significantly more than my brother wants anyone to know. 3 weeks before the December dinner, Wells called me. Ms. Morrison, we need to talk. In person. With your attorney present. Marcus and I met him at his office. Wells had 2 thick files on his desk. I've completed my investigation, he said. Ms. Morrison, you were right to insist on accuracy. What I found is, well, it's not what your brother expected. He opened the first file. You are Rachel Morrison, VP of Product Development at Tech Solutions Incorporated, salary $180,000. You are also the founder and CEO of MaxTech Global, a wholly owned subsidiary of Industrial Tech Corporation. Your personal net worth is approximately $67 million. You've been concealing this from your family for 6 years. Correct. He opened the second file. His expression was grim. In the course of my investigation, I conducted standard background checks on your immediate family. Your brother, Cameron Morrison, owns Morrison Capital Partners. I reviewed public filings, investor complaints, and financial patterns. He slid a document toward Marcus. Morrison Capital Partners is, in my professional opinion, operating a Ponzi scheme. The evidence is substantial. Promised returns that are impossible given actual market conditions. Multiple investors unable to withdraw funds. Use of new investor money to pay earlier investors. Falsified statements. The fund is insolvent to the tune of approximately $890,000. Marcus took the file, reading quickly. His face hardened. This is securities fraud. Multiple felonies. I've already contacted the SEC, Wells said. They asked me to delay my report to your family until they could coordinate with local law enforcement. They'll have agents at your December 15th dinner. I felt the room tilt. Police will be there? Ms. Morrison, your brother's crimes are federal offenses. When I present my findings, the SEC will move immediately to freeze assets and execute arrest warrants. They're treating this as a flight risk situation. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic family, because what happened next changed everything. December 15th arrived cold and clear. I dressed in a tailored black suit, the first time my family had seen me in anything professional. I pulled up to my parents' house in my Honda, parked between Cameron's Tesla and Melissa's Range Rover. Marcus and Sarah arrived in Marcus's BMW. Cameron saw them and frowned. Rachel, why did you bring lawyers? Mr. Wells is presenting a report about my finances. I brought legal counsel. It seemed appropriate. The house was packed. Mom and Dad, Cameron and Melissa, Aunt Linda and Uncle Frank, several of Cameron's other investors, even some family friends. Cameron had invited everyone who'd ever questioned him, everyone who'd heard about the SEC investigation. He wanted witnesses to my humiliation. Carson Wells sat in the corner with his laptop and 2 sealed envelopes. His expression was carefully neutral. Across the street, I noticed an unmarked sedan. Inside sat 2 people in business attire. Federal agents waiting. Cameron stood, glass of wine in hand. Thank you all for coming. I know many of you have questions about the baseless accusations that have been made against Morrison Capital Partners. Tonight we're going to address those questions by examining lifestyle versus actual wealth. He gestured to me. My sister Rachel has always lived modestly. She dresses simply, drives an old car, lives in a basic townhouse. For years she's claimed to be just a mid-level tech employee. Some people might look at her lifestyle and assume she's barely getting by. Nods around the room. That was exactly what everyone assumed. But I suspected Rachel was hiding something. Being secretive. So I hired Carson Wells, one of the best investigators in the state. Cost me $15,000, but it was worth every penny to get the truth. Cameron smiled at me, confident and cruel. Because when Mr. Wells proves that Rachel has been secretly wealthy all along while living like a college student, it will demonstrate that lifestyle is not evidence of income. That someone can be very successful and still choose to live modestly. That appearances, in other words, mean nothing. He turned to Wells. Mr. Wells, please present your findings. Carson Wells stood. He picked up both envelopes in his laptop. Before I begin, I need to state that this investigation was more comprehensive than your brother may have anticipated. Per standard investigative protocol, I didn't just examine Ms. Morrison's finances. I examined all relevant context, including family financial history and relationships that might impact her economic status. Cameron waved a hand dismissively. Yes, just get to Rachel's bank accounts. Wells opened his laptop and pulled up his first document. Report 1. Rachel Elizabeth Morrison Financial Background. The room leaned forward. Ms. Morrison is employed as Vice President of Product Development at Tech Solutions Incorporated, with an annual salary of $180,000. However, this is not her primary source of income. Cameron started smiling. Ms. Morrison is also the founder and chief executive officer of MaxTech Global, a predictive maintenance AI software company. 6 years ago, MaxTech was acquired by Industrial Tech Corporation for $95 million. Ms. Morrison retained a 40% equity stake and operational control as CEO. Gasps echoed through the room. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Wells continued, clinical and precise. Ms. Morrison's personal payout from the acquisition was $38 million. Her current equity stake is valued at approximately $23 million. Her total compensation as CEO is $320,000 annually, plus performance bonuses averaging $150,000 per year. She maintains personal investment accounts worth approximately $6 million. He looked up. Rachel Morrison's total net worth is approximately $67 million. The silence was absolute. Cameron's face had gone from smug to chalk white. You're a millionaire? I'm a multimillionaire, I corrected quietly. Melissa looked like she might be sick. You've been lying to us for 6 years? I never lied. I told you I worked in tech. I told you work was fine. Everything I said was true. I just didn't specify how fine things were. Mom stood up, her voice shaking. Why would you hide this from us? We're your family. Because I wanted to know who you were when you thought I couldn't give you anything, I said. And now I know. Cameron slammed his hand on the table. This is perfect. This proves my point exactly. Rachel lives modestly despite being worth $67 million. Lifestyle means nothing. The SEC's investigation is based on. Mr. Morrison, Wells interrupted sharply. I'm not finished. Cameron blinked. What? Wells picked up the second envelope. His expression was stone. As I stated, I conducted comprehensive background checks on all relevant parties. That included your finances, Mr. Morrison. The color drained from Cameron's face. That wasn't part of your assignment. Standard due diligence, Wells said flatly. He opened the envelope and pulled out a thick document. Cameron Robert Morrison, owner and operator of Morrison Capital Partners. Mr. Morrison claims to manage over $50 million in assets with consistent annual returns of 15 to 20%. Wells turned to address the room. These returns are statistically impossible given market conditions over the past 8 years. I obtained Morrison Capital's actual SEC filings. The fund manages approximately $12 million in real assets. The remaining $43 million in claimed value is fictional. Uncle Frank stood up. What are you saying? I'm saying Morrison Capital Partners is a Ponzi scheme, Wells said. His voice carried no judgment, only facts. New investor money is being used to pay returns to earlier investors. At least 23 investors have been unable to withdraw their funds. Statements have been falsified to show profits that don't exist. The fund is insolvent by approximately $890,000. The room erupted. Aunt Linda started screaming. Uncle Frank was yelling about his retirement savings. Other investors surged forward, surrounding Cameron. That's a lie. Cameron shouted. This is defamation. I'll sue you. You won't, Wells said calmly. He pulled out another document. Because I've already provided this information to the Securities and Exchange Commission. They've been investigating Morrison Capital Partners for 4 months. My findings corroborated their evidence. Cameron backed away, shaking his head violently. No, this is a mistake. Rachel, tell them. Tell them this is some kind of revenge. This has nothing to do with Rachel, Wells said. This is about your crimes, Mr. Morrison. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Investment advisor fraud. Making false statements to investors. The evidence is comprehensive. He pulled out page after page. Falsified account statements showing 18% returns when actual returns were negative 3%. Transfer of $240,000 from new investor accounts to pay returns to existing investors. Personal expenses charged to the fund, your Tesla, your Rolex, your mortgage payments. It's all documented. Melissa grabbed Cameron's arm. Cameron, what is he talking about? What did you do? I didn't. This isn't. Cameron's voice cracked. I was going to fix it. I just needed more time. One good quarter and I could have. Mr. Morrison, a new voice said from the doorway. Two people in FBI windbreakers stood in the entrance. Behind them, two more agents. I'm Special Agent Torres, FBI. Cameron Morrison, you're under arrest for wire fraud, securities fraud, and making false statements to federal regulators. Cameron ran. He actually tried to run, shoving past his wife, heading for the back door. Two agents caught him before he made it 5 steps. They pushed him against the wall, cuffing his hands behind his back. You have the right to remain silent, Torres began. Melissa collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. My mother was screaming Cameron's name. My father stood frozen, mouth open in shock. Aunt Linda turned on me, her face twisted with rage. You knew. You knew and you let us invest with him. I didn't know about the Ponzi scheme, I said quietly. I suspected Cameron's lifestyle didn't match his claimed income, but I didn't know he was stealing from investors. If I had known, I would have reported it. Bullshit. Uncle Frank lunged toward me. Marcus stepped between us. My client had no knowledge of Mr. Morrison's criminal activities, Marcus said firmly. Ms. Morrison was also a victim of her brother's deception. She's been investigating him for years. Then why didn't you stop him? Aunt Linda shrieked. Because I had no proof until tonight, I said. And now there's proof. Cameron is going to prison. Your investments are gone. I'm sorry, but that's the consequence of his choices. Torres finished reading Cameron his rights and started walking him toward the door. Cameron twisted around, his eyes wild. Rachel, please. Tell them this is a mistake. Use your money, hire lawyers. You have to help me. I looked at my brother. The golden child. The success story. The man who'd spent 12 years treating me like I was nothing. No, I said simply. I'm your brother. You have to. You spent $15,000 to expose my lies, so you could use me as a shield for your crimes. You called me a fraud while you were stealing from investors. You treated me like garbage for 12 years because you needed someone to feel superior to. My voice didn't rise, but every word landed like a hammer. You made your choices, Cameron. Now live with them. They took him away. The sound of Melissa's sobbing filled the silence he left behind. The house cleared quickly after Cameron's arrest. The investors who weren't family left immediately, already calling lawyers. Aunt Linda and Uncle Frank left in fury, threatening lawsuits against everyone. My mother collapsed in a chair, makeup streaming down her face. How could you let this happen? I didn't let anything happen. Cameron committed crimes. He got caught. You could have warned us. You knew something was wrong. I suspected. I didn't know. And if I had tried to warn you, would you have listened? Or would you have told Cameron, giving him time to flee with whatever money he could grab? She had no answer. My father looked at me with something between horror and accusation. You're worth $67 million and you never told us? Would you have loved me more if you'd known? Or would you have just treated me like an A-team? The question hung in the air. Marcus touched my arm. Rachel, we should go. I looked at my parents one last time. Cameron's crimes aren't my responsibility. His consequences aren't mine to fix. I'm sorry you're hurt, but I'm not sorry I protected myself from all of you. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The next 72 hours moved with brutal efficiency. The FBI seized all of Cameron's assets. The Tesla, the house, Melissa's jewelry, bank accounts, everything. The SEC froze Morrison Capital Partners completely. Every investor received notification that their funds were likely gone. Cameron was denied bail. The prosecutor argued flight risk, given the evidence that he'd been moving money to offshore accounts for the past 6 months. Apparently his contingency plan if everything collapsed. Melissa filed for divorce within a week. She'd had no idea about the Ponzi scheme, at least that's what she claimed. The FBI investigators believed her. She'd been a trophy wife, happy to spend money but uninterested in where it came from. 23 investors filed a civil lawsuit against Cameron. Total claimed losses, $4.2 million. Most of it would never be recovered. My parents' house became a war zone. They'd invested $200,000 with Cameron, my father's entire retirement account. It was gone. They blamed me for not stopping it, for not warning them, for having money and not offering to make them whole. I didn't offer. Because it wasn't my responsibility to fix the consequences of Cameron's crimes or their decisions to trust him blindly. Aunt Linda and Uncle Frank lost $300,000. They hired a lawyer to see if they could sue me for failing to prevent Cameron's fraud. The lawyer told them they had no case. They stopped speaking to me entirely. The whole family fractured. Some relatives thought I should use my money to reimburse the victims. Others thought I'd been complicit. A very few, reached out to apologize for how they'd treated me. I accepted those apologies. Because they'd never participated in the cruelty. They'd just been present for it. 4 months after that December dinner, I sat in a federal courtroom watching my brother plead guilty to 11 counts of securities fraud, wire fraud, and making false statements to federal regulators. The prosecutor laid out the scheme in devastating detail. 8 years of fraud. 47 victims. $4.2 million in losses. Cameron's offshore accounts that contained $127,000. A fraction of what he'd stolen, the rest spent maintaining his fraudulent lifestyle. The judge showed no mercy. Mr. Morrison, you betrayed the trust of family, friends, and innocent investors. You lived lavishly while your victims lost their savings. You showed no remorse until you were caught. Sentence: 12 years in federal prison. Full restitution ordered, though everyone knew he'd never pay it back. Melissa divorced him before the sentencing. She got nothing. Everything was seized. Last I heard, she'd moved back to her hometown and was working retail. Cameron would be 50 when he got out. His business career was over. His reputation destroyed. His life as the golden child finished. I felt no satisfaction. Just a quiet, tired relief that it was done. 6 months after the sentencing, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. Rachel. Her voice was small. Can we talk? About what? I need to apologize. Your father and we've been in therapy. We're trying to understand how we failed both of you so badly. Both of us. We raised Cameron to believe he was entitled to success without ethics. We raised you to believe you were invisible unless you were useful. We failed as parents. He was crying. I'm so sorry, Rachel. I'm sorry we didn't see you. I'm sorry we didn't protect you from him. I'm sorry we blamed you for his crimes. It was the apology I'd wanted for 12 years. It didn't fix anything, but it mattered. Thank you, I said quietly. I appreciate that. Can we try to have a relationship? Not about money. Just as family. I thought about it for a long moment. Maybe. Fully. With boundaries. And therapy for all of us. Yes. Whatever it takes. It's been 2 years now. My relationship with my parents is cautious but healing. They've met Alex and toured MaxTech headquarters. They came to the ribbon cutting when we opened our Chicago office. They're learning about my actual life instead of the fiction they'd invented. They'll never get back the $200,000 they lost to Cameron. I didn't offer to replace it. They didn't ask. That boundary matters. Cameron writes occasionally from prison. Letters asking for money for his commissary account, for lawyers to appeal his sentence, for help getting early release. I don't respond. Marcus handles his letters. They go straight into a file marked evidence of continued manipulation. Uncle Frank and Aunt Linda never recovered their money. They moved to a smaller house and Frank came out of retirement to work part-time. They still won't speak to me. Their choice. MaxTech continues to grow. We're now valued at $340 million. I've been featured in 3 major business publications. The Forbes article finally ran with my full cooperation. I'm no longer hiding. Last month, I established the Morrison Victim Restitution Fund, $2 million to help Cameron's fraud victims. It won't make them whole, but it's something. Some accepted it gratefully. Others refused, still angry that I didn't somehow stop Cameron years ago. I can't control their response. I can only control my actions. I've learned that family is a privilege, not a right. That blood relation doesn't obligate you to accept abuse, manipulation, or blame for someone else's crimes. That protecting yourself isn't cruelty, it's survival. Cameron spent $15,000 to expose my lies, so he could use me as a shield for his crimes. Instead, he exposed himself. Not because I destroyed him, but because he'd already destroyed himself. The truth just caught up. That investigator didn't ruin Cameron. Cameron's own choices did that. I just refused to be collateral damage. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just stepping aside and letting someone face the natural consequences of their own actions. If you've ever had to cut off toxic family, tell me your story in the comments. What would you have done? Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself and refusing to be the family scapegoat. Because you're not responsible for fixing the disasters other people create. Not even when they're family. Especially not when they're family. You are not the villain for refusing to be the victim.